Think about the last time you rewrote a text message before sending it, or maybe stared at a menu longer than you really needed to, or second guessed an email you'd already read 3 times. None of those things were actually hard. None of them actually required that much from you. And yet your brain gave them the full treatment anyway. That's what I want to talk about today. Not the big decisions, not the career crossroads or the life defining moments where the stakes are obvious. I mean the small stuff, the constant, invisible, daily tax that overthinking puts on your life. Because that's where the real cost is hiding. And most people never stop long enough to add it up. Because when most people think about overthinking, they think about the big sticking points, the decision they can't make, the thing they can't start. And yeah, those matter. But I think we're underestimating what the smaller version of this is actually doing to us quietly every single day. And here's the thing, it's not just decisions, it's social interactions too. It's the conversation you replay long after it was all over. The message you never sent because, the wording just didn't feel right. The moment you stayed quiet when you had something really important to say. And all of this adds up. And most people have no idea how much. Here's something most overthinkers don't realize about themselves. The exhaustion you feel at the end of the day isn't always from what you did. It's more likely from what you thought about doing. It's from every low stakes decision your brain treated like a high stakes one. The replay to a coworker's message, what to have for lunch, whether to move a meeting to 3 or keep it at 12, whether to say something or just let it go. None of these things really matter much on their own, but your brain doesn't know that. It runs the same process on all of them. It weighs the options, anticipates all the outcomes, second guesses the answer, circles back, and eventually either makes a call or delays until the decision maybe makes itself. And that process costs a lot of energy every single time. The thing about mental energy is that it doesn't really discriminate. It doesn't save itself for the decisions that actually deserve it. If you burn it on one, a small thing, well, it's eaten up, it's gone. And when that thing that actually comes across your plate that needs your full attention, well, now you're running on fumes. I mean, think about what you've already decided before noon on any given day, right? What you're going to wear, what you're going to eat, how to respond to that text that came through last night, whether to bring something up or just let it go. By the time you sit down to do something that actually requires you to be fully there, you're most likely running on almost empty. Not because you're lazy, not because you're not really capable, but because you've been burning fuel on things that really didn't need it. But everyone focuses on the obvious version, the big project you can't start, the decision you keep circling around, the daily version is quieter than that, right? It doesn't announce itself. It just shows up as this low level fatigue that you can't quite explain. A feeling that you've been going all day but haven't really gotten anywhere. That you were busy but not productive. That you're tired but you're not sure from what. What we're really talking about is the difference between decisions that require thought and decisions you've trained yourself to overthink. And most overthinkers have stopped being able to tell the difference. Everything gets the same treatment, the text message gets almost the same analysis as the conversation you're actually nervous about. There's no filter. And without a filter or some sort of mental heuristic, the mental load just keeps growing. The irony is that most overthinkers are actually quite good at making decisions when they finally make them. The decision itself isn't usually the problem, it's the process that goes into making the final decision, the unnecessary lapse around something that didn't really need more than one. If the daily decision drain is the quiet cost, well, the social cost is the one that goes even deeper because it doesn't just take your energy, it takes something harder to get back. It costs you your presence. And most overthinkers have no idea how much they're losing right here. You finish a conversation with someone, maybe a friend, a coworker, someone you actually care about. And before you've even walked away, you're starting to replay things. Did that land weird? You know, why did I phrase it like that? What did they mean when they paused after that sentence? Were they bothered? Did I say too much? I should have said it differently. And you're not just replaying it because something obviously went wrong. You're replaying this because that's just what your brain has been trained to do after these kind of interactions. It records the conversation and then plays it back at half speed, scanning for problems, looking for anything that might have landed wrong. And here's the cost in that. While you're running that replay, you're not here doing whatever you're supposed to be doing or wanting to do. You're living somewhere between the conversation that just happened and the one that hasn't happened yet, pre-processing the next interaction, re-editing the last one, existing in this kind of mental in between where nothing is ever quite finished and nothing is quite beginning, right? Then there's the interactions you avoid altogether, the message you didn't send because you couldn't land with the right words, the person you didn't reach out to because, well, the timing felt slightly off, the moment you stayed quiet in a group because you were waiting for the perfect opening that never quite arrived, the invitation you turned down, not because you didn't want to go, but because something about the whole thing felt like more than you wanted to navigate. Each one of those is a connection that didn't happen, a relationship that stayed exactly where it was instead of actually going somewhere, a version of yourself that never showed up. Now, there's a version of you that people never really get to know, the one who would have sent the message, who would have said that thing, who would have reached out, who would have shown up for the conversation instead of spending it on a previous conversation. That version isn't gone. It's just waiting on the other side of less thinking. And most of the time, the thing you were overthinking didn't actually matter. The message would have been fine. The timing was, good as it was going to get, right? The opening you were waiting for had already passed by the time you were ready for it. The analysis didn't protect you really from anything. It just kept you on the sidelines while the thing you actually wanted was happening without you. The last one is the hardest to talk about here because you can't really see it while it's happening. You only see it in retrospect. If you're honest enough to look, that is, right? The first two costs have a texture to them. You can feel the fatigue, you can notice the friction, but this one's a little different. This one is more quiet. It happens in the background while you're busy thinking about everything else. Every decision you delay, every action you keep pushing forward, every moment you spend in your head instead of in your life. Well, there's a cost accumulating on the other side of it. Not a dramatic cost, not one bad outcome you can look back at and say, that's where it went wrong. It's more subtle than that. It's the relationship that stayed at a certain level because you never quite showed up for it enough to go deeper. The thing that didn't get built because you spent the building time in planning mode. The opportunity that closed while you were still deciding whether to take it. Overthinking doesn't announce what it's taking from you in the moment, and that's what makes it so hard to sit with, right? It doesn't feel like loss right here, right now. It feels like caution. It feels like being thorough. It feels like you're doing the responsible thing by thinking it all the way through. And so you keep doing it, and time keeps passing, and then you look up one day and you're not quite where you thought you'd be. And you can't really trace how you got there because there's no single decision that you could point to, right? It was really just 1,000 small ones, 1,000 moments of staying inside your head instead of stepping into the life you want to create. And the people who seem to be doing what you want to do, building what you want to build, living in a way that actually feels like it belongs to them. Well, they're not smarter than you. Most of them aren't more talented or more confident or even more prepared, right? The difference is usually that a lot smaller than that, right? They're just spending less time in between, less time analyzing before they act, and less time replaying everything over and over. More time actually in it, in the process, actually present for their own lives instead of observing them from a slight distance. The cost of overthinking isn't one big dramatic thing that you could point to. It's a slow accumulation of a life lived a little bit off to the side of where you actually want to be. Close enough that it's hard to see, but far enough that it quietly matters. And most people never add it up. But I think if you're an overthinker, you probably should, because the first step to changing a pattern is seeing it clearly, not beating yourself up about it, not turning this into another thing to overthink, right? Just actually looking at what it's been costing you, not in some abstract future sense, right now, in the actual shape of your actual days, right? If you're an overthinker and you're watching this video, right, and you want more support on your journey as you work through whatever is keeping you stuck, right, you can explore the options to work with me by going to natehooks.com. The link is in the description below. And until next time, remember, the cost of overthinking isn't always loud and apparent. Sometimes it's just the quiet sum of everything you didn't do.